All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OneSoccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming, joined by my colleague, Alex Gangue-Ruzic. And we have a Canadian men's national team roster drop that I think Alex will fire some people up. But first things first, Alex, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good.
Tired?
Yeah, I mean, it's love an early morning roster drop. I mean, I'd love a tradition where we make it like an evening thing going forward, like 6 p.m. Pacific, plunk down in front of the telly, dissect a nice evening roster drop. But not jokes aside, it's interesting. 'Cause, I mean, of course, it's exciting to see a squad, but also there's a big set of games coming up. Excited for that. But yeah, it's such an interesting roster and so much to break down because at this stage, this sort of roster impacts today. It impacts 2026. It impacts next year. It impacts so much, right? So there's so much to dissect because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few names that we will get to. Armin, big shout out to him, created a awesome little video. If you guys want to go check it out, we'll get it up here for you guys shortly, and then we'll bring up the roster itself. But yeah, I mean, a couple of big matches coming up against Jamaica. We want to obviously win because it gets us to the Nations League semifinals and automatically qualifies us for the 2024 Copa America, which, I mean, I care about the Nations League because I want to see this national team win some silverware, Alex, but the importance of qualifying for the Copa America is massive. I know that even if we lose, we get a second shot at it, but I just feel like, the rise that we've taken in the last, 2 years or so, it would feel kind of a step backwards if we aren't able to take this opportunity and just qualify pretty much right after this window.
Yeah, I think you don't want to mess around, especially heading into that March window. You want to it helps you, for example, to be in a Nations League final in March again, because the way the schedule is going to be is if you win this quarterfinal, not only are you already in Copa America, it's 2 guaranteed games in March with Nations League. It gives you a chance to go for a trophy again, a final, play some marquee games against US or Mexico if all goes right. Of course, they're no guarantee to advance either. So yeah, it's a big chance just to take care of business, to really, again, also kind of get a bit of the stink, I guess, for lack of a better word. That's maybe sour taste in the mouth might be a bit of a better word from the summer, the finals losses, the lack of September friendlies and all that. The Japan loss, a good way to kind of put that all behind you is win, show that, okay, you're still a top team in CONCACAF. Okay, maybe this year is just a bit of a blip, bit of everything kind of catching up to the team. Puts you in a good slate next year to just reset your first win of the year, chasing a trophy. Rest of the year, you're preparing for a Copa America, etc. So yeah, it really just feels like this window can kind of reset the vibes, because this is the last camp of the year. So if you can reset the vibes heading into 2024, it's not a bad thing at all.
No, and it's a big one. And Jamaica is a good team. It's I see a lot of people who keep reaching out and saying, they're nervous for this window. This isn't the same Jamaica side that we took down in World Cup qualifying. And they're right. It absolutely is not. Those English players that they've brought in have had a lot more time with the national team. They've played a lot better in recent, fixtures that they've had in tournaments. So this is going to be a big test. This is not going to be straightforward. And the form that Canada is in going into this window is a little nervy as well. But we have the roster here, Alex. This is what we're here for. So let's break it down. So if you guys are joining us today, drop a like on the stream and answer the simple question here. Give me a squad rating out of 10. I've seen a couple 2, 6, 5, 5, 6 so far. I know that, you guys aren't overly happy with some of it, but we're going to get into that. So Alex, I do quickly just want to show you what I tweeted out, because the Patrice Bernier was actually commented on the projected roster I put out yesterday. And I don't know where it is. Let's go to OneSoccer. And I just want to get your take on it because I thought it was funny. So I put out this roster because this is what I was expecting. And you know what? I almost nailed it, right? Did I almost nail it? I think I almost nailed it.
I think you're just missing Piet. Bombito didn't make it. Other than that, it's pretty...
It was pretty close, right? But this
is kind Cava. You're just missing Cava and Piet.
Cava and Piet, yeah. So it was pretty close, and I just said this is what I expect. Keyword expect. And a lot of people are like, Josh, why is Osorio starting? And, like that's pretty much the number one comment. And why is Borjan in? And I'm like, but this is what I'm expecting, guys. But then I like that when Patrice comes in here and, he's like, do we need to see Larin and David start together? Is there another alternative? They have been as prolific lately. And can we see wingers in a 4-3-3? Alex, what do you think of that? Don't you? I know you would like that comment, because I replied and said, I'd love to see a 4-3-3. I just don't see there any way, shape, or form that Bielsa will actually do a different system. He seems to be, scared to rock the boat, which is why I assume the same like old guard. And then that just goes back to my tweet once this came out. I've complained a lot about Bielsa that he's too scared to, put his stamp on this squad. And I personally think that this roster kind of sums up what Bielsa is doing. And that's just, he's added Cavallini and K back to the old guard, which is going to irritate a lot of fans. I do give him props for bringing in de Fougerolles as well as Ahmed. But all in all, I just feel like this squad will rub some fans the wrong way. Alex, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree. I think the big thing that I see from this squad is, what is it? I think that's the big cancer. Like, and what I mean by that is kind of like, what's the plan, if that makes sense? Because you see some guys brought in for form, like Ali Ahmed, fantastic form with the Whitecaps, well-deserved call-up. Excited to see it, right? But then where's Mathieu Choinière, right? He played well in the last window, has been in great form. Yeah, he hasn't played in a few weeks because of Montreal, but neither is Jonathan Osorio. And if you're going over form, Mathieu Choinière has probably been the better option in 2023. He's been MLS All-Star, had a great season, really took a step forward. So, okay, then, it's like, is the roster fully based off of who's in the top form right now? And then, yeah, it's great to see Luc de Fougerolles as well, because another thing you have to do is ultimately you have to plan for 2026. And what I mean by plan for 2026 is, as we saw at the 22 World Cup, Canada wasn't at the level to compete. It was great. You go in, you had a good time. You got to show that you're there, but you're not quite there, right? Like you're at the level, but you're not quite at that step to really compete, go toe-to-toe, win games. And that's what you want to be for 2026. And part of that is planning now, maybe making some choices now that are okay when it's kind of one of those things, in baseball, like tie goes to the runner kind of thing. you're for 2026, the tie has to be okay. If you're talking between two guys who are decently close in form, tie goes to the guy who's going to help you in 2026 versus the guy who's going to help you today, because yeah, of course you got to get to Copa America and etc. But you're looking at the battle, for example, Lucas Cavallini up front. He's been a great servant to the Canadian men's national team, so he'll be good to have around from a leadership perspective. Of course, he's scored 1 goal in 11 games this year for Tijuana. He's played 353 minutes, so he's not even really playing. Yes, okay, maybe someone like an Ike Ugbo isn't in sparkling form either in England, but that's someone that's several years younger, and based on the fact that he's at a decent club in Cardiff, that's someone you could see in 3-4 years. Okay, yeah, that's someone who still has the potential to start games at a World Cup. I don't, with Lucas Cavallini, you don't see someone who's going to be starting games at the World Cup, and that's not a disrespect to him. It's someone, he's had his moment. He's pushing into his 30s. He's not getting minutes right now in Liga MX. I'd say that's a fair projection. I think that's kind of that. Looking at that squad, there's just that imbalance of, it's not enough looking at 2026, and then it's a bit too veteran heavy. And I say veteran heavy in the sense that veterans are fine if they're performing, fine. But even someone like Steven Vitória continues to struggle in Portugal. Yeah, okay, you want to bring in veterans for leadership, but at this point they have to kind of be in good form to help push the young guys around them for 2026.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, because I feel like you and I, Alex, have been somewhat negative, but it just seems like the correct feedback to give. And you're absolutely right. Like, these guys had their run up to the 2022 World Cup and then had an opportunity to win some silverware after that. But now it's coming to a point where, like you mentioned, they're not in form. You're keeping out younger players who have an opportunity to basically have a big future for the national team. And it's starting to irritate fans. And I know it starts at the coaching level where we have an interim coming in. So, I said he doesn't want to rock the boat. I said he doesn't want to put a stamp on his squad. And that's exactly what we're seeing. But, hopefully whenever a new head coach comes in, it'll just be a fresh pair of eyes, maybe a new system, maybe an opportunity to put a little bit faith in guys that, are a little bit more deserving, or ones that just see more of a future. And like you just said, Ugbo's a great example, because there's a lot of Canadian players right now that are not in good form. I don't want to take away the fact that Ugbo should be in here on form, because that's not the case. But he's younger. He could be in this program for probably close to a decade. And you have Cavallini, who's not. Now, I do want to put my theory, because a lot of people were saying, why is Cavallini and Kay in here? Alex, do you think it has anything to do with the fact that Marc-Anthony Kay is still playing right now for New England? Cavallini is still playing, although not a lot of minutes, at Tijuana, where players like Chouanier, like the Montreal guys, are out of playoffs. Do you think there's any correlation there to some of these call-ups of, guys that are actually still playing at the tail end of MLS versus guys that's already been eliminated?
Yes and no, because I think at that point, there's enough guys otherwise who are playing, right? Like, I think if you're looking at Cavallini, well, there's the European season going on, so you could look at guys like Ugbo and Brim up front. I think in particular Charles Andreas Brim. I think in midfield, Osorio and Piet haven't played in a while, and you could potentially look at the likes of a Latourie, right? And in that case, Chouanier is in a similar boat to Osorio, and again, based on form, it feels like Chouanier could be in. So I'd say not completely. Yes, that could go against it, but even then, like someone like Cavallini, again, like I mentioned, he's 353 minutes this year. I don't know how much of a difference that is, that he's still playing right now when he's been mostly just coming off the bench.
That's fair. Now, Alex, can you remind our viewer here of the cap tying rules in regards to LDF? He's excited to see him on the roster. Some of the other choices are a little frustrating for him, but what is the cap tying rules for him for this window, and can he be officially cap tied?
Well, he can be provisionally cap tied with the new rules. Hopefully we see Luc de Fougerolles on the field. If you haven't seen him play already, great ball playing center back. Recently made his debut for Fulham's first team in a cup. Still waiting on that Premier League debut, but at this point, I'd put money on it coming by the end of the season at least, if not before Christmas. But in terms of the rules, because he's 18, if I'm not mistaken, so if you're under 21, when you play an official game now, you have to play either over 3 or be over 21 when you play your first game or whatever, or play your second game. So since he's 18, if he plays less than 3, technically after he can wait 3 years, I think it is, and join another nation, say. But if he sees the field in this camp, at least he's Canada's for at least 3 years until he's 21. So I think that's pretty good news to have him locked up. And I think with the World Cup in 2026, you assume if he sees the field now, you're going to put him on the field a whole heck of a lot more, especially heading into Copa America, because he's definitely a prospect where he's kind of burst on the scene as of late. But you're looking, it feels like the first time in a while we've seen a prospect like that's someone who could be a 2026 starter easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I don't want to, we were a little critical about some parts of this roster, but this is huge getting him in. And I remember putting out a tweet months ago in preseason where I kind of did like a little profile on him to introduce some viewers and stuff to him, and he got a little bit of hype. And then to watch him make his professional debut recently and play so well, he was given the man of the match. He did an interview after, and he's a very well-spoken young man. And he said, did I get it just because it was my first, competitive debut, or did I get it because, I was the best player? I don't really know, but I'm really grateful. And he's got a bright future. He really does, Alex. But I'm looking over here in the video section, and we got some nice videos that Armin created for us. So we're going to go position by position and break down the roster, guys. So starting with the keepers, give me your guys' thoughts, and we'll come back to them after this nice little clip that Armin made. Borjan, Crépeau, St. Clair. I don't think there's a lot of surprise. I know that, some people out there don't want to see Borjan in the squad, but Alex, it was never going to happen. He was always going to be included. It's great to see Crépeau back. Is there any, do you want to throw some love to Sirois, or do you think there should have been any changes that isn't the obvious? Yeah, maybe not Borjan. And do you think that Borjan will start?
I think Overall, this is probably a fair positional group. I think St. Clair, Crepeau, been in good form in MLS. Crepeau in particular has been good to see him back, and LA's winning and pushing for trophies again. Borjan, like you mentioned, I'm not surprised to still see him around, and it's one of those where, look, keeping him around in a mentorship third goalkeeper role, that's not nothing unusual. Like, you can look across the world. France, for example, this World Cup, he's a legend, for example, but Steve Mandanda isn't the third best goalkeeper in France heading into this World Cup, but you call him up because that's someone who was there when they won, who has that experience. So Borjan, from that perspective, makes sense. But in terms of your question, should he start? It feels like the answer has been no since about the Nations League final. But as we saw, he got the net in Japan. So is he going to start? Probably. And I think that, again, is a transition where you should begin looking at 2026. And based on that, of course, that St. Clair, that's Crepeau, that's Jonathan Sirois as well, who you can't forget. And even now, based on form, it's been a bit of it was a rough go earlier in the season for Milan Borjan at Slovan Bratislava. He has stabilized a bit, but you can argue based on form as well that Crepeau or St. Clair have been in better form in MLS. So there's also that. But Borjan's kind of been the guy. So I expect him to start, although I think this is something that transition should have began last window, for example.
I see a lot of viewers when I ask the question, who's the keeper that you want to see transition to the number one spot, Borjan, Crepeau, and they always slap back and they say Sirois every single time. It's pretty funny. So obviously Sirois not quite yet, but I agree. I don't think there's any chance that it won't be Borjan starting, but if it was up to me, I do think Crepeau is in the best form right now. I think St. Clair's slipped a little bit towards the end of the year, but that Minnesota side was not in good form either. Not really completely on him, but I just think in confidence in the way that they're playing and the style, I think Crepeau is the one to go. But we're going to move now on over to our fullbacks, center backs. I'm going to do center backs first. Now I'm relatively happy with the center backs, Alex. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I still think Vittoria can come into these camps and have a role. Very different profile to anyone else out there. Like you mentioned, he's not in great form. It's not a good moment for him at club level, but he gives you that different option, and you don't have to start him. There's still ways to play a back three without him, in a back four without him. But we got Cornelius in there, which is huge. I think he's he is the probably best center back we have right now. I've said that for a while. We also have Miller, and then of course Luc de Fougerolles, which excited to have him in camp. I doubt he's going to start. What are your thoughts there? And we can also include Alistair Johnson if it's a back three. But what are your thoughts on the center backs?
It's also pretty straightforward. Like you mentioned, Vittoria, I think it's something based on form. He's probably that kind of number 4 in this group, and you kind of wonder, okay, Joel Waterman played in the middle of a back three for Montreal and showed some good growth in the end of the year despite Montreal's struggles. Their bigger issue is putting the ball in the net, not so much defending. So I think Joel Waterman was a good shout to end of the year. Could have liked to see him. Lucas McNaughton is back from his injury. And, Nashville, again, their issue was scoring goals, not keeping it out. So McNaughton has done relatively well at that over the course of the year. So I would have potentially liked to see those two over Vittoria if we're going off of form. But I guess it just depends what we see starting. I mean, in terms of form, Derek Cornelius is by far the clear number 1 guy. Unfortunately for him, he kind of had a short leash in Japan for whatever reason. He was kind of the one sacrificed after that first half, which I felt was incredibly unfair. And you kind of saw it when Vittoria came on. Even then, he didn't really, they didn't score, or they only scored 1 with Vittoria on the field, but he was just a bit kind of chaotic and off the pace. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I could see something where it's like a Cornelius back 4, but it's like, okay, would it be Cornelius Vittoria? Would, Biello put Kamal Miller on his left, Cornelius on the right? I'd like to see that, but I don't think that happens. It feels like we're destined for a Vittoria start, which, based on form and based on what we saw in Japan, would feel a bit undeserved, but that kind of feels like the theme of this roster.
Yeah, I mean, we were surprised with the Cornelius start against Japan, but like you mentioned, he was sacrificed, but he's playing so well right now. It just seems a shame not to use him. He's playing right now in the middle of a back three. So I mean, I agree. If it is a back three, I'd want Johnston, Cornelius, and then Miller. But I don't really know exactly what we're gonna get. But that back line, depending on what it's gonna look like, does it make you nervous with the speed that the Reggae Boys have here, as our viewer pointed out with Antonio? I mean, not the fastest guy, but a good striker. But then Bailey, Gray, like they got some speed up front. You nervy at all if Vittoria does get the start, especially against that type of speed?
Yeah, I 100% would be worried because Japan kind of had a field day with Canada's high line, and Vittoria's just sometimes he roams a bit forward and into that space and kind of forgets what's going on behind him. So yeah, I'd be worried because Japan's a pretty speedy team, and they they had a lot of fun in transition moments against Canada all game long, especially when Vittoria came on. So that's going to be a big worry. So that's why you want to see someone like a Cornelius, even a Miller. He's got good straight line speed. And maybe that's why someone like a de Fougerolles, yeah, he's young and it's his debut, but even you feel like he could provide a bit of something. I don't think he starts the first leg in Jamaica, of course, but maybe either in the second half of the second leg or, maybe even in the second leg, if you're depending on what the situation looks like, maybe his speed could be a bit of an asset. And hey, he is teammates with Bobby de Corva-Reid on at Fulham, so there could be a bit of inside intel from de Fougerolles. But yeah, I think the speed is a big factor, especially on the wings. That's where I mean, again, a reason to play back four. Alphonso Davies and Alistair Johnson are pretty good at 1v1 defending. So going up against the likes of Bailey, and et cetera, among others, I can't just off the top of my head. Those are definitely that speed will help.
Yeah, I mean, a back four, it could look pretty nice. I don't know exactly what it would look like, but yeah, Johnston on the right, Davies on the left, and then again, I would prefer like even Miller, Cornelius as the two center backs and a little bit more balanced back four. I still don't think that's what we're going to do. But Alex, you and I have talked up Cornelius for a while here, but Armin is saying, how much does it improve Kamal Miller when he plays by defending Messi every day in training? And G Money says that this is why he puts Miller ahead of Cornelius on the depth chart, and that I tend to ignore the fact that Cornelius is playing in a lower league. So I think, Kamal Miller playing for Inter Miami and playing up against someone like Messi will obviously help him grow as a player. But I mean, right now at this exact moment, Miller isn't playing at all because their season is over. So I think at this exact moment, I'd still probably go with someone who's in better form like Cornelius. And I just think that Cornelius in general is a better player. But I'm curious to see, Alex, what you think between the League of Sweden, obviously, and against MLS. And if you agree that it's a lower league, because I agree that throughout the league itself that, there's some weaker teams as in most leagues. But I mean, he's playing for a team that could be playing in the Champions League. He's got a chance to win the league title next weekend. I don't look down at the Swedish league at all. I'm not saying it's the highest league, but what's your thoughts there when you compare the level that Miller's playing at versus Cornelius?
Yeah, I'd say the Swedish league's pretty solid and regularly sends teams into Europe that, don't fall flat on their face. So there's certainly those near the top can perform in those sorts of environments. Yes, that's a big thing with a lot of non-top 5 European leagues. You even see it with quality leagues like the Eredivisie. That's kind of the split. A lot of the top teams in these leagues, like the Swedish league, they'd be able to compete in MLS. The problem is, yeah, like you mentioned, the teams at the bottom don't. And that's one thing that MLS will always have is that parity of teams from 1 to 26 are all a lot closer than in some leagues where 1 to 20, you may as well be playing different divisions, different sports, just because of how stark the difference is. So I don't know. I feel like I'd still say the level and difference in level, between those two leagues isn't big enough to say, okay, Cornelius is clearly in an inferior league and he is on the top team in a league. That brings a different set of pressure because, man, if you're Malmö, anytime you lose, you're looking like, man, you could lose a title, you could lose. I guess just the pressure of having to win every week. And in MLS, yeah, you don't have that pressure. And for Inter Miami, they haven't really been winning a whole lot. Yeah, they had their League's Cup run, but since then it was just a lot of fading out as the year went along. Is Messi healthy? Is Messi injured? It's something where, yeah, like I'd still keep Cornelius ahead on form as of now.
I just think he does a little bit of everything. Like he's an aerial presence. He's scoring goals right now. He can play in the middle of a back three. He can play on the outside left of a back three. He can play in a back four. He's in great form right now. And, like you said, he's got that winning mentality. His club is a win away from winning the title. He's just in a really good place. He's a very consistent center back. He's good at playing with the ball at his feet, which I think is very important. He's got more speed than someone like Steven Vittoria. So just especially for this Jamaica matchup, there's a lot to like. But even him you put him up against Miller and you put him against Vittoria. Maybe it's preference for me, and maybe it is you too, Alex, but I'm taking him to start almost every single time. But all right, guys, we're going to get you guys caught up again. If you're just joining us, drop a like on the stream. Let us know what you guys' thoughts are on the squad. I'll give you guys a quick update on the positions we've gone through. We're going to go into the fullbacks, but first we had the keepers, which was Borjan, Crépeau, and St. Clair. No big surprises. On to the center backs, we had Kamal Miller, Derek Cornelius, Steven Vittoria, and Luc de Fougerolles, which is great to see him in there. And now we are on to the fullbacks, where we have 3 Vancouver Whitecaps, if you want to include Ali Ahmed in there, but you got Richie Larea, Sam Adekubi, Alistair Johnston, and of course, Alphonso Davies. Alex, do you classify Ahmed as a fullback, or where would you slot him at? I'd say more of a midfielder, no?
I'd say midfield, just based on the depth in there. But yeah, I'd say fullback group, that's pretty much the biggest no-brainer of the squad, because Alistair Johnston, not a game he'll want to remember yesterday against Atletico. To be fair, it's not a game that Celtic will want to remember in the Champions League, as their Champions League hopes are put on life support at best. But Johnston's still probably the number one option at right back. Richie Larea, I'd say he's been in pretty solid form in Vancouver, although the opinions have been mixed over here about Larea's arrival. I've been mostly pretty pleased with him. Left side, Alphonso Davies going nowhere, even though he's been a bit more inconsistent this year for Bayern after a hot start. He's kind of slowed down a bit, but Alphonso Davies he's a key leader on this team, and you want him to step up big this window. And then Sam Adekubi, again, like no-brainer as well. He's been in good form for Vancouver when healthy. That fullback group feels like it's kind of been the biggest no-nonsense, and there hasn't been enough either to push them. And then, in terms of Ahmed, good that he can offer you cover there, but I'm excited to see what he can do in the midfield, which hopefully includes a start, to be honest.
And when these rosters usually go up, the midfield always looks very thin. So I'm surprised they don't just bump them up to that midfield spot there. But yeah, no, I totally agree. You and I just talked about this yesterday, Alex. Where the strength of this national team is, and you and I like to look out wide. Got good pacey wingers, talented wingers, one of the best fullbacks in the world, and fullbacks playing at high levels. So this is no big surprise. A lot of depth there. I did miss this question. I do think it's intriguing, and I want to go back to it quickly from G Money Talks, and it's: do you think that Biel has the cojones to put in LDF ahead of Vittoria for this big match? I would love to see it, but I don't think he does. Biel ain't rocking the boat. I think I've been pretty vocal throughout the stream and just in general that I don't think he's going to do any big surprises. I thought that last window when he started Cornelius, that was a big surprise, but he quickly retracted that at halftime. I doubt Luke starts any of the 2 matches coming up, but like Alex mentioned, if we're in a good position at home, maybe there's a good chance he comes on in the second half to help see out the result. I'm assuming we're going to see a 3-5-2 and something very similar to to your Osorio, Eustachio, Kone, Laren, David type core, and then obviously Davies, Johnston, Larea probably, or Buchanan kind of circling out. It's what you'd kind of expect. No big surprises for me. And like Alex even talked about the Derek Cornelius thing, I kind of agree. I don't think even this Jamaica squad is lined up perfectly to start someone like Steven Vittoria, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's Vittoria, Miller, and Johnston. So with Borjan and net. So there you go. Anything to add there, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, will Biello rock the boat? Based on what we've seen, no. Because against Japan, you had a chance to rock the boat from the start. It's a friendly. Okay, you go more of a veteran lineup, fine. At halftime, they were down 3-0 in a friendly. Like, that's pretty much the perfect opportunity to throw in a de Fougerolles, throw in, a Dane St. Clair, Max Crépeau, just to get them minutes. It's a chance to throw in all sorts of different players. It was time to throw in a Mathieu Choinière at halftime versus when he came on. Instead, the only sub you saw was Steven Vittoria. That was kind of like that was a move you make in a must-win game kind of, and that kind of set the tone, I think. So I'd expect a lot of similar moves where it's safe and kind of and veteran prioritized, which is kind of the theme of the squad, it's felt like.
I agree, but I am still hoping for a response from those vets and just like the core players in general, because that Japan match was really, really hard to watch. But this window has a lot riding on it. You know, the Nations League semifinals, a chance to win some silverware. You have that taste in your mouth losing to the finals. And of course, just getting it over with, qualifying for a major tournament that I think these guys need to be a part of, 2024 Copa America. And I know that these guys will want to be a part of. So despite who's called up to the roster, I need to see some type of bounce back here after that match. And truthfully, I am expecting it. Now we are on to the midfields, Alex. In the midfields, and again, you know, Ahmed could have made this list look a little bit bigger, but we have Eustachio, Kone, Piet, Osorio, and the big surprise, Marc-Anthony Kaye, who I believe I saw KJ tweet out that he is returning to the national team for the first time since March. So March of 2022, that is. So that is
Or
a, no,
23,
23, yeah, my bad, 23. So that's still a while that he's kind of left out. And it kind of seemed like he was taking a bit of heat at the time for his performances with the national team. And that kind of, and I didn't know there was a way back for him. Surprise, surprise, he's here. My theory was the fact that he's still playing compared to someone like Chouanier. I know that this is going to be a touchy subject. Where is that question on Chouanier? But yeah, so walk me through the midfield, Alex, and why is Mathieu Chouanier not included?
Yeah, I mean, to start, I think Eustachio is kind of the no-brainer. He's going to have to be huge this window because we have to remember he was missing against Japan. And as we've seen across these last 2 years, no Eustachio usually means no bueno for Canada. It feels like Eustachio is kind of the heart of this team. So that's the one positive, I guess, you can bring out of the Japan game, is that Eustachio wasn't on the field. And okay, I don't know, based on how Canada played, if Eustachio is the difference between them losing 4-1 and getting a result. But I think Eustachio still helps immensely. So he's going to have to be huge. And then Ismail Kone as well is kind of the no-brainer. I think you're going to want him to really find his form, especially because there's a bit of pressure on Kone at Watford recently. I think he was late to a training or something like that, and got dropped out of the 11 for a bit. So this is kind of a chance for him just to, head down, get back to business. Kone, he's a no nonsense kid. That's why he's kind of burst onto the scene the way he has. But it's a setback, right? It's never something you want to see. But of course, when that happens in professionals, it happens to everyone. I think Marcus Rashford last year had an issue like that. Even if more close to home, was it like Malik Tillman had an issue like that with PSV? In both of those cases, they responded by, when they got their chance to start, they went and took it. So for Kone, a good chance. Maybe this camp can kind of propel him towards that. In terms of the other two, or Piet makes sense just at the 6 because I would have liked to see Victor Latourie come in, just to get another look at him. His form's been improving as of late, but the Piet one isn't as egregious, I'd say. But then the big two surprises for me, I think, are Osorio and Kaye. And Osorio is a key leader on this team, and he's been getting calls, but it just feels like for going off form, Mathieu Chouanier again. He had the goals, the assists, if you want to go in that route. He was an all-star. Even just in terms of the eye test, he's everywhere from Montreal. Everything was going through him. He just looked so much more improved on the ball. Chouanier would probably be the choice between those two. But then, okay, you could make Chouanier and Osorio. Kaye is kind of one where it's funny because he's been in decent form for New England. That's the thing. He's actually been like relatively, having watched him play at the more of a 6, which has been a new role, like an out-and-out 6 instead of an 8. He's actually looks quite comfortable in that role. But it's kind of like, well, he wasn't getting called in last window. What changed, say, right? Like that's something where if he wasn't already making in last window, nothing's really changed in terms of his form. Like, oh, he really pushed himself back into this window. And again, that's something where if you want to create competition at those positions, you really need guys who want guys pushing in. And it feels like in the likes of Osorio and Kaye, that wasn't necessarily the case, especially when you consider how guys like Chouanier and Latourie looked.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, Marc-Anthony Kaye was putting up, I think he had back-to-back assists or something along those lines, but he was starting, he was playing well. And I put out a tweet that said, call me crazy, but it looks like just, on like the eye test that Kaye is probably in good enough form to get a call back to the national team. and I got absolutely roasted. There wasn't a single positive reply saying, yeah, like, I'd welcome K back. Everybody that replied to it basically said, shut up, Josh. Absolutely not. He's not coming back to the national team. There's no way. And I didn't disagree. I was just pointing out the fact that K is in good form. He looks like he found a home here in New England, and he got into the starting 11, and he was producing. And I just thought it's funny now. Fast forward, maybe it was a month ago. Fast forward a month, he gets called back up, and it's like, oh, I know that's why. Just when I tweeted out that I don't think that the fans are gonna be so happy about that, it's because they were flooding my notifications saying how much they did not want to see K in there. But yeah, I mean, besides K, Eustachio coming back, like he touched on in a lot of comments here, I agree. And every time that I see Eustachio produce this season with Porto, it's most important player of the Canadian men's national team, and I wholeheartedly believe that statement. I think that, like you mentioned also, Alex, we didn't have Buchanan in the Japan window, and we didn't have Eustachio, so two key players. But Eustachio is the one that you notice the most. It's night and day. The midfield just is completely different without him, and he's in such good form. Watched the Porto game yesterday, and it's just so much fun. He's won penalties in back-to-back matches. He kind of plays as a 6. He can switch into an 8. He drives forward. He gets puts his body on the line, which is why he's winning these penalties. He's scoring goals. He does a little bit of everything. I could not be happier right now with his performance for his club, and now I'm excited to see what he can do when he's back with the national team in 2 very, very important matches.
No, I think Eustachio, he's the key, man. He's the key. It's pretty straightforward to say, but he's been Canada's most important player, and what he brings is balance. He just feels like he brings that protection to the back line that makes the back line play that much better and gets the most out of them. But then he also gets the ball forward, right? He gets that. He can hit those passes. He can make those runs. So it just feels like he's kind of the key to linking defense to offense. And the linking defense to offense part is key because, yeah, as you saw against Japan, when that defense kind of gets exposed, good teams can take care of it, right? Especially in terms of at the back and in goal. It's still not a full strength for Canada. It's not saying it's a full-on weakness either, but again, it's the reality of this team for now is until you get more youngsters like de Fougerolles who break onto the scene, that Canada's just going to be stronger in the attack than they are at the back. That's not an insult to any of the defenders. So having a guy like Eustachio who can shield them but also make their lives easier in terms of progressing the ball, everything. It makes a huge difference, and you kind of always realize that when, again, someone you can almost, how I'll say for someone's importance, it's sometimes absence is the best way to realize someone's importance. And we saw it with Jessie Fleming last window for Canada when she wasn't on the field, and I think for Stefan Eustachio, we've also seen that in the rare moments that he's missed out, how much he's missed.
It's a worry in terms of depth as well. We've talked about this national team and, how there's players playing at the highest levels and it kind of trickles down. It's an intriguing looking national team, but when it comes to that position, one of the most important positions in the game, and you have someone who's playing in Champions League, is playing in a great league in Portugal for one of the best clubs in Porto, and he's on fire right now. So when you take him out and then your replacement is down with absolutely no disrespect to whether it's Piet or now I guess K or Laturi, it's a huge drop off, and they're asked to do a ton, and it completely changes the way that this national team is used to playing with someone like Eustachio in there. So it wasn't surprising last win against Japan to see, the I almost said cluster and then the F word, so I don't want to get us demonetized, but it just didn't look the same when you don't have like someone like his presence in there. So I'm really excited to have him back. I think he's in great form too. So it's going to be really exciting to see him come up against Jamaica, where we're seriously going to need him. Now we move on, though. I'm going to do these 2 back to back because there's only 3 forwards. So here is your wingers. And I guess there's only 3 of them as well. It's Buchanan, it's Hoylett, and of course, Liam Miller, who picked up a great assist over the weekend. And on to the forwards, there's 3 as well. David, Larin, no real surprises, and Cavallini. And Alex, I want to start with the strikers because I don't think there's been a window where I've been more nervous about our strikers, because last campaign when Jonathan David scored his 24 goals in Ligue 1, he was on fire. Like it was incredible watching him. Every time you watch him, he basically had to share a goal or a highlight or something. And this year he's completely out of form. He got brought on over the weekend in the 90th minute, which almost seemed a little disrespectful, especially because the score was 0-0. I didn't really know what to take away from that. I was very surprised because the reports that I was reading in France was the fact that he was supposed to start. and maybe something changed. I don't really know. Then he didn't come on until the 90th minute, so that had some question marks there. And then of course Larin, who's it was good to see him score in the Copa del Rey, but in all honesty, he's not doing much at all in La Liga. So has there been a time that these two together are coming into a window in worse form?
It's hard to think much worse, because even when Larin was frozen out at Bruges last year, at least David was putting in goals semi-regularly for Lille. But yeah, it's kind of take your pick in terms of worries up front, because David, like you mentioned, he hasn't scored in Liga since August, I think it is. And he has, I think the one goal he scored since August was a penalty in Conference League, which is like, okay, that's a big worry. Kyle Larin has one goal this year for Mallorca, and it's Copa del Rey. And not only is it Copa del Rey, it's against a sixth-tier side. That's also important to remember. In terms of La Liga opposition, he's struggling to start, struggling to when he's had chances, he's just looked completely out of rhythm, out of form. I think of that game against Barcelona about a month ago where he could have really helped. He had a chance to win Mallorca the game late. He completely just missed the ball, and that's worrying because Larin's such a form striker. Like, he's someone where, man, when everything's going right for him, it's rainbows, but it was just kind of one where it feels like it's raining very hard right now for him, and not in a good way. It's not raining goals. And then, yeah, even Lucas Cavallini, like, okay, maybe there's some form there. One goal this year in 11 games for Tijuana, and he's not starting either. So, yeah, pretty much between the three, that's what, there's 6 or 7 goals this year, all of them scored by David, and none of them since, no league goals by any of them since August, pretty much. It's been rough.
It's weird though, because this summer I was convinced that David was going to leave. If you follow me on X, you know that I try to talk about David as much as I can, because I truly believe that this was the summer, and I liked some of the options out there. Like, I still believe if he would have went to Tottenham, he'd be having a very different season right now. So, is he frustrated that he wanted to transfer, didn't get it? I don't really know. We had a question saying, is Club Brugge and Lille benching their Canadians to protect them from impending transfers? I don't think so. Buchanan's not getting benched. He's had some injury issues, but he's a big part of that Club Brugge side. And for Lille, I personally think David was benched over the weekend and wasn't brought onto the 90th because he's not doing it. He's not scoring. He's, like Alex touched on, like, the numbers aren't there. The eye test clearly shows that. And then if you watch the games, he's not getting chances, and any chances that are coming his way, he's absolutely not taking. I don't know if it's a confidence issue. It's a tweak in system. Remy Cabella, who was such an important duo with Jonathan David, is also having a really tough start. I believe he's got 0 goals, 1 assist. It's just not really flowing the same way it flowed for those two guys last year. Those were by far and away their two best players. And Lille are really struggling right now. Not really in results, because they're getting results, but they're struggling creating chances, and they're not winning the games the same way they used to last campaign. And I don't think it's because of a transfer. If they wanted to sell him, they could have sold him for probably like 50 or so mil. They decided to hold on to David because they thought he was worth more, and they could have used him this year. So I don't know if they're regretting that right now, but it is a little worrying to see how Jonathan David is performing right now. But, maybe there's some transfer rumors heating back up in January. I don't know. It's just a little concerning. But the player that doesn't make me concerned is that Buchanan's back, Alex. It's going to be good to see. I expect him probably to start in the right wing back role. Do you agree with that, or do you think there's a way that you'll see Larrea and Buchanan on the pitch at the same time? Could we see him in the false 9? Maybe kick David or Larin to the bench and find a way to get him up top and maybe float around a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder if genuinely I think what we could see, which can make a lot of sense, is perhaps it's a bit of a 5-3-2 kind of thing, or something where you see a bit of experimentation up front. Because, yeah, if you're looking at your strikers and you're worried, one thing that was also a bit clear against Jamaica or against Japan, Canada kind of lacks a bit of a vertical threat up front. So having someone like a David with the Buchanan could stretch lines more and open up space for David, open up some pockets, because you're constantly, as a defender, worried about the threat of Buchanan going in behind. Whereas against Japan, a big issue is that Larin and David both didn't offer that threat, and it was so easy for Japan to mark them out of the game because they were just kind of cutting off service, knowing that they wanted the ball to feet back to goal. So we'll see. I think, again, with something, I'm not, like Armin mentions, I'm not worried about David in the sense that he's going to find his form again. It is, of course, worrying that the slumps continue to happen, especially after he didn't get a move and after it feels like he finally put it behind him. But I think ultimately it's one of those where that's always going to be the reality of playing at a club like Lille, the ebbs and flows. Your service is going to come and go. So I think for Canada, David starting will be fine because at least he's been relatively until up this weekend he's been playing. So at least you're not worried about him being too rusty. It's more of just a confidence thing. And hey, maybe playing for Canada will be what he needs because he scored goals against CONCACAF teams plenty in the past. But yeah, I wonder if Buchanan could start in that 3-5-2. And like you mentioned, that offers you a bit of something different. You can put Larea and Davies at wing back. You can experiment with the back three. You can do something where it's Cornelius, Miller. I feel like de Fougerolles could even have a shout in a back three in that regard. Of course, you have Johnston. I'd be interested to see if a Buchanan does get a look up front because, it feels like Canada needs to try something.
Yeah, and I think this is a very good point Armin's bringing up, but that's what I think worries me a little bit more is a big part of why I believe he didn't get the moves over the years is the fact that he's had these big slumps. When he put up 13, 15, 24 in his 3 years in Ligue 1. But in the first season where he won the title and he had 13, he's had, I think, 2 different slumps around 7 matches where he didn't score. And then, like Armin said, he would go in and he'd bang in a bunch. And then the same thing when he put up 15, he'd score, he'd be hot for 5-6 games and he'd go 6 or 7 games without a goal. And then he'd get hot again. And I think that scared away some teams. There's also the fact that he played in the 2-striker system, which a lot of clubs don't have, which again, circling back as to why I was personally disappointed to not see him get his move is that he switched to a 1-striker system in a 4-2-3-1, one of the more popular systems in modern football. And on top of that, he didn't have these big slumps like that 6, 7, 8 game slumps turned into maybe like a 4-5 game. And he only did it, I think, once. Other than that, he scored pretty consistently last season. I know a lot of them were penalties, but still putting the ball in the back of the net, played the 1-striker system. I think he did everything possible to earn a move. And now that it didn't happen and you're seeing him struggle again, like I said, maybe it's, he doesn't show too much emotions. He's annoyed that he didn't get the move. Is it just not happening? Is it like Remy Cabella's form having an impact? I don't know. I don't really know. It sucks because other teams are going to look at him now and be like, okay, this is a player that we've seen get into these slumps. They're continuing right now. And it's not really what you want to see. But I guess if you play devil's advocate, could lower the price tag, which is also the big issue. And maybe he does get his move. I don't know. It's an interesting debate. Let's just hope he goes out with the national team, scores some goals, goes back to Lille, and continues it. He's also got a Conference League game coming up against Milan Borjan's side. So, maybe he puts one by his international teammate, and that can get some confidence going. But, Alex, we're getting a lot of questions around the 3-5-2. Can we go 1 striker? So why don't we do what we always do and build a starting 11? So do you want to build one that is, realistic, or do you want to build one first that what you want us to do?
Why not both?
Okay, we'll do realistic first. Do you see any way it's not a 3-5-2?
I would be very surprised if it's anything but a 3-5-2.
Okay, then I guess stop me when you disagree or think that there's a debate. I guess actually go back. So do you want to see Buchanan or do you want to see Larea in the squad? Because if not, then I could probably just build this squad pretty easily as long as the one I'm picturing in my mind doesn't have Richie in it.
I'd say Richie probably starts.
You think so?
Especially if you look at some of what Jamaica will offer, that wide threat. We've kind of seen that where Larea matches up a lot against those wide players. And especially, I think the big thing is usually if Laren's in form, then you maybe see Buchanan drop up. But I don't know. I feel like there's a route where Buchanan could start higher up the pitch just as something different because we've seen Hoylett start up front. So, why not Buchanan for that vertical threat? So, yeah, the kind of way I see it is like he's Larea and Davies, the wing backs, Buchanan up front with the David. The midfield would probably be Eustachio, Osorio, Kone, and then the back three, Johnston, I guess. Vittoria Cornelius would it be, or would it be Cornelius Miller? Maybe I think.
I'm having a tough time.
I think it'd be Cornelius Miller.
Cornelius Miller, you think so? He did go with it once. I'd like to think just again whether you don't want to get rid of Vittoria at all, which Biel obviously doesn't want to do, but if you look just at your opposition, I mean, you know, Japan was quick too, and you went with Cornelius, but you changed your mind. I want to agree with you. I'm gonna put it because it's more so of kind of what I want to see, and I do think that there is a chance, but I am kind of torn. I don't know. All right, I'll do it. We'll do it. We'll go Cornelius in the middle.
I mean, he started Cornelius against Japan, so there's obviously a reason for that in the sense that he wanted to see that combination together. And again, I think you'll see the footage. It's one of those where, yes, the second half, Victoria came on and quote unquote stabilized. They only allowed 1 goal in that second half versus 3 in the first half. But as we saw, Japan kind of just stopped scoring after that fourth. They kind of eased off, and the chances were still there. And Victoria got a yellow, if I'm not mistaken, and just looked off the pace. So I think it's something where, if you're looking at the film, the Cornelius, personally, I saw more from the Cornelius Miller just because, you know, it's also as a center back, it's always hard to blame your center back when every 3 minutes your midfielders and wingbacks are getting just turnstile, and it's chance after chance after chance just down your throat against talented Japanese attackers. That was never going to be an easy job for any central defender in the world, unless you're Paolo Maldini or something like that.
This is what you're looking at then, Alex. Did I get it correct? You wanted to see Larea in, which means that it'll be a 3-5-2 with Borjan.
This is probably what I'd see from Biello in terms of him not rocking the boat too much, but also making some calls in terms of, like, I just find it, based on form, I'd be very surprised if both Larin and David start, but I don't know. We'll see. Actually, maybe
It could be. I mean, let us know, guys, in the chat, what do you think of this starting 11. This is our guess that what Biello will somewhat do with him. I guess a little bit of Alex Josh impact on it, but Borjan, I could see for sure. I do see a world where Larea does start. Johnston, Cornelius, Miller, Davies, Eustachio, Kone, Osorio, I would say is pretty much a lock. And then up front, you know, Buchanan, David. You know, Buchanan's got a little knock, so maybe Larin, or had a little knock. Maybe Larin starts. I don't know. This would be interesting. Gives a lot of speed up front with Buchanan like that, a little more free roll. Gets Larea and Davies. You got Cornelius in there, which got some little more speed to the back. You know, there's a lot to like. I mean, I preferably would like Ahmed in there in that midfield. You know, I know you would too, Alex. But
100%.
Why Borjan? Guys, remember, we're doing what we think Biello will do. This is not. I'm stressing this. This is not what Alex and I will do. Alex and I will create a fun starting 11 very shortly. But this is what we believe Biello will do. And if I want to be even more realistic, I'm assuming it would be Larin probably up front.
And then Buchanan drops back. Probably.
And Buchanan drops back. I mean, he had, like I said,
maybe Vittoria starts. It's really hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay, you guys, we'll do 3. So guys, take a look. This would be a creative potential Biello starting 11. But in all, all right, 1 second.
Well, I'd say if I'm going to put money on it,
yeah,
I'd probably put Vittoria, Larin, Buchanan, even though.
Yeah, I'm going to just show you guys what we expect, like truthfully really expect Biello to do.
And then Vittoria somewhere.
Yeah. Which is, would you put money that it is Miller on the left instead of pushing Cornelius over? Which I think I probably would.
I think they've really, that Vittoria Johnston Miller's kind of been a partner, a trio we've seen a lot of since the World Cup. So I'd say that's probably, again, if we're putting money on a projected 11 from Biello, it's probably something like this.
I agree. So this is what and I would put money on it. I'd throw $20 on the line being like, this is exactly what I expect him to do in that first match. This is, Larin, David up front, Osorio, Kone, Eustachio, Buchanan, Davies as your wing backs, Vittoria, Johnston, Miller, Borjan, and Alex. To be honest, like, it's not, I don't hate it, because again, like, when you look at it, you have really your 2 leading goal scorers in the national team history, Larin and David up front. I know they're not in great form. They're not playing that well together either, but you never know because they know how to put the ball back in the net for Canada. You have a midfield trio, which I think Ahmed would benefit to be in there a little bit more. Still guys who've been around and done it. You have 2 great wing backs in Buchanan and Davies. It's just the back 3 worries me a little bit, just with Victoria's speed going up against this speedy Jamaican side. But other than that, all things considered, it's not a horrible starting 11. Obviously, like he's not going to do something crazy. Or is this crazy? Is it crazy to start Vittoria in a match like this?
Well, we'll see, because I think, again, the one caveat we can have from the Japan game is okay, maybe they really missed Eustachio that bad. So I think at least you can feel a bit more confident being like Eustachio can paper over the cracks, so to speak. Yeah, I'd say just the big worry is backline the pace. Another thing that to kind of keep an eye on is Alphonso Davies at wingback, because for whatever reason, last window he was so good going forward again, but defensively he was kind of a bit asleep at times. So watching Davies on that left side defensively, of course Buchanan as well is someone that will want to push forward. So could that be a risk against a Jamaican team that's gonna have wingers like Leon Bailey, Damari Gray, etc. Guys trying to run in behind? Is that a worry? I'd say that's something to watch.
I agree, and we are going to do this, and I'm gonna tweet at Patrice after this. So he asked, and you know what? We're gonna deliver. So it's funny, Alex. You and I just built the squad that we'd put money on. Look at that. Look at the squad I tweeted yesterday. It's a squad that you'd put money on. This is what I expect to see. Patrice didn't like that. He did not like that. Do we need to see Laren and David together? Is there an alternative? And then the system that Alex has been screaming at for about a year and a half now, probably longer, 4-3-3. So let's do him the honors of creating a 4-3-3 system, Alex. And I'll tweet it at Patrice after and see what he thinks. So let's just get this going. See if I can change the style here. So give me your back four then, Alex. Or actually, no, let's start in between the sticks.
I'll say, how outrageous do you want me to go?
I don't know. Make it go about 75% of what you would think BL, like, give me like a logical reason if you're going to make a change that you think BL would go with. So try to make it somewhat realistic in the 4-3-3, but you can get creative if you want.
Well, I was gonna say if I'm going, I'm putting Crepeau in net.
All right.
I think I'd love to see St. Clair, but I think Crepeau is a bit realistic in the sense that he has the familiarity and he's been in good form for LA. So I'd put Crepeau in goal, but could go either way. And then if I'm going back four personally, and then that's where you can kind of stop me, I would go Johnston, De Fougerolles, Cornelius, Davies. Screw it. Let's go. Let's get ball playing, get some speed, etc. But I could, if not, I Johnston, Cornelius, Miller, Davies would also. I'll accept that. But hey, depends how wild you want me to go, Josh.
I'm gonna stop you right there. But I don't hate it. Like I 100% agree. I'd probably put $1,000 on De Fougerolles not starting, but I could see a situation. I mean, I can't see this at all. So maybe we do get creative. I don't know. Let me know, guys, in the chat. Should I put De Fougerolles in there and tweet it at Patrice?
At least put Cornelius in if you're doing a 4.
Oh yeah, I'm putting. I'm for sure putting Cornelius in. We're taking Vittori out. That's why I'm like, yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I would love to put him in. I just don't think De Fougerolles would start. So now you have Johnston, Cornelius, Miller, Davies, a true back four. Johnston plays as a right back. Davies plays as a left back. Shocker. Play them in their proper positions. And then up in the front or in the midfield, or the two center backs, you have Cornelius and Miller, who both can play and have played in a 4. A little unorthodox because they're both lefties, but Cornelius is very good at playing the ball. That's why I moved him on the right-hand side. I don't think you'd have an issue with that, right? You'd probably prefer him on the right if those two were to play in a back 4.
Yeah, I think Cornelius makes the most sense to play on the right. Just, Miller's he's been so solid on that left side. I think it would make sense.
All right, I agree. He's comfortable on that side as well. So now our midfield 3, which I am guessing you're going to go Eustachio, Kone, and Ahmed.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Eustachio to hold it down. Kone is an 8, and then Ahmed, man, this guy can. We see it for the Whitecaps. He plays so well between the lines. He can progress. It feels like you got to get him some serious minutes, and I think in a 4-3-3 he could really thrive.
I didn't send you the numbers as I always do, but I believe he could pretty much only wear 12 or 13, and then De Fougerolles will have to wear the other one. Which one are you expecting him to wear? You give him Atiba's number, or do you think he's gonna take 12?
Oh,
it's a tough question. I know I'm putting on the spot.
The 12, I think the the legendary number. Yeah, I could see him rocking 12.
12? Okay, that's what I was gonna send you that because
Or even 13, honestly, but for a midfielder like from Atiba to 13 could make sense.
all right, which one do you want? Sinclair or
Let's
Hutch?
do 13. Let's
13?
do 13.
All right, there we
Let
go.
him fill those shoes.
And then up front, I'm guessing you're gonna go David as the striker. You're gonna leave Laren on the bench. You're gonna go Buchanan down the right, and are you gonna go Liam Miller down the left? Or what do you think?
I'd honestly put Junior Hoylett.
You're going Hoylett?
I think just because I think the Miller one, yeah, it's tough because I think there's merits to both because Miller brings that speed. So I'm kind of also leaning Miller. Hoylett's been a good form. You know what? We'll put Miller. I think we'll put Miller just because he's been in the good form in the championship. But I'd say what's nice with Hoylett is that it kind of gives you a bit of he can drop into midfield and leave space for Davies to run into. Where I just worry if you put Davies and Miller on the same side, they're both two very vertical, fast guys, and they might kind of get in each other's way if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we'll put Miller, but that's the reason for Hoylett. And plus, Hoylett actually impressed me with the Whitecaps. He showed a lot more in the tank than I expected after a long layoff, so he's actually in pretty decent form. I
like the look of this starting 11, Alex. We've done this before. We've done this activity many times. The chat usually likes it as well. Oh, Armin's got an idea. Davies left wing, Adekubi left back.
I could see that because Adekubi, he fits very nicely in a back four. That's the one thing. Like, he's a great ball progressor. The only thing is, if I'm going to see Adekubi and Davies together, with Davies playing higher up the field, which I don't mind. We could also put that down as an option. Why not? Throw that down as an alternative. The only thing for Davies, we just have to see him adapt his game a bit more. Because the only worry is that when he's played higher up the field, he's slowed things down a bit too much, which as opposing teams have been able to mark that, just because if you're a winger and you're holding onto the ball a bit too much, it's easy to get behind it and congest things. But yeah, I could also see Adekubi Davies as a combo if you're not sold, say, on like a Miller or a Hoylett starting, and you want to get Adekubi on the field because he's consistent and can help you with your build-up and as well as defensively.
I think personally, I would prefer this because you and I had a huge debate when Bielsa came out and said that remember he's like, kind of want to play Davies in his proper position, and then he played him as a wing back, which still somewhat his proper position, but he plays in a true back four, a little bit more attacking. And even in this system, because of Johnson there, it'll allow Davies to still push up the pitch as much as he can, adds a little bit more. And the issues that I always find when after matches that maybe Davies didn't play the best is, I always hear this word hero ball. He wants the ball. He's the best player on this team, and he expects to do things. That often sees him drift into the middle, into spaces where he's not overly effective. I think Davies at his best when he's running from deep at full speed, can get down the byline and put in a ball because he's just, that's what he does. That's where he's at his best. So I think restricting him just a touch in a proper 4-3-3 system would allow him just to maybe sit back a bit, not worry about that hero ball. You can't throw your team completely out of shape and dive up into that midfield as much as he usually does, as opposed to just hopefully getting up the pitch when you're able to and show why you're one of the quickest players in the world and you got a good cross on you. I don't know. I like the idea of putting him as in the true back four, and that's an idea I'd say a year ago that I never thought we'd see. I think I would have thought it would have been more realistic to see him out as a winger because that's what he wants to do. But I think we could argue this is probably better for the team if you see him in a back four instead of playing up front and putting Adekubi at left back.
Yeah, look, sometimes it's the tough decisions you have to make. Of course, Davies wants to play higher up the field. You understand it. That's always something, even at Bayern, you hear you want to come in to replace Robin, and next, you end up, but hey, it's one of the best left backs in the world. Take it as a compliment. And, for Canada, I'm sure they'd love to have that stability as well. And like, the thing is, he could be so useful in the sense that Canada, like we mentioned, one big issue they've had at times is speed at the back. And man, having what Davies does for Bayern, where he just cleans up counterattacks on his own, would be huge for Canada. And being able to progress the ball deep would also be huge. I feel like he paired Johnston nicely because we see it for Celtic where Johnston plays a little deeper anyways. He doesn't get as forward much as he did for Montreal. So it pairs nicely where you can kind of have the Johnston dropping back and Davies just having a free role where he's a left back in defensive position, but he still gets a free role going forward, but he gets to run from deep, like we mentioned, where he's so much better and he's not Because another thing, yeah, when he's playing on the wing, one worry is that he just doesn't get that chance to get his to stretch his legs as much as you want, and that's a big asset with Davies. You want him running and stretching the touch line and using that speed and forcing defenders to backpedal and foul him to stop him. Whereas when he's standing still, because sometimes up front you're not getting that chance to run from deep. If you're a defender, ask any defender. I mean, Josh, you've played a lot of soccer in your life. Would you rather defend someone like Davies running at full speed, or would you like the chance for him to be flat-footed so you can, grab his jersey and get close to him?
I mean, yeah. I don't want to go up against him at full speed because you're not going to catch him. He makes defenders so uncomfortable when he gets up to full speed. He can run by you and then can put in a dangerous ball. So I didn't do too much defending in my day, to be honest. I wouldn't want to defend him anyways.
Number 10, wrong guy to ask.
yeah, wrong guy to ask. I wasn't much of a defender, but yeah, no, that's where you see him at his best. And you saw him the first few games of the season for Bayern were incredible when he was setting up Kane. Is full stretch, he releases those legs, get up to full speed, and then he's got a really good cross on him, which you don't sometimes see enough of, I don't think. But I would like to see this. I would like to see him restricted a touch. Still, I mean, Johnson will allow him to do what he does, like you mentioned. And I just think we could see more balanced side instead of the cluster fudge that we've been seeing lately. But that's just my opinion, guys. That is the starting 11 that I'm going to tweet out to Patrice right after this, and that's all the time we have on today's stream. Alex, I put this out. Can get your thoughts on it. Let us know right now, guys. Do you think Canada will defeat Jamaica over the 2 matches, the 2 legs, and move on to the semifinals and qualify for the Copa America, or do you think we will be a painful conversation after the window? Because I still feel like this team can do it. I feel like this is still a strong roster. I want to imagine that this is the bounce back we've been looking for, and I'm just I'm a positive person, Alex. So what are your thoughts? You think we can do it?
I think realistically, I'd say so, because I still think Canada kind of in CONCACAF will step up. They know that what's at stake, and there's a few things in their favor. The big thing is that they remain very good at home. The only time they haven't lost at home in like almost over 5 years now, I think it is. The only time they've even dropped points at home since then, it was Guadeloupe this summer, and it was Honduras in 2021. Other than that, they've been startling at home against some very good teams. So I think at home it's going to be huge. Really, the big question is how much damage can you avoid on the road? But the nice thing is about heading to Jamaica, as we've seen in past, the field's going to be a bit muggy. It's this time of year it might be a bit wet. If you can go out, grind out a 0-0, head home and take care of business, then you can have pretty good confidence in Canada getting the job done. But you just worry that maybe they fall asleep in the first leg. Maybe a Michael Antonio puts one in. Ethan Pinnock's been scoring headers for Brentford. Maybe he gets on the end of something, and then all of a sudden you're chasing. But I think if they can stay relatively stable and kind of return to what they've been good at in CONCACAF, I'd have confidence heading into that second leg. I
like that. I like the comment here though from Roberto. Yes, but it will be painful, and that's just CONCACAF for you. So I definitely agree, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed it. On your way out, as always, be sure to drop a like, drop a sub if you're new around here, and we will see you guys soon. Cheers, friends.